Welcome to Whole Lot of Wolves. It's the 2023 summer special. We're your hosts. I'm Joshua Buckley.
I'm Paul LePage.
And joining us from the NYC, Mr. Alex Patakis. How's it going, Alex?
Going well. Been a fun off season. Good to see you guys.
We have different definitions of fun, I think.
Oh,
Unless
no,
you're
no.
talking
Fun,
about
fun for
personally.
me.
Fun for you.
Yeah. Not for the club.
Yeah, Paul's been turning into a running man lately. I've noticed from his Facebook posts.
Yeah, a little bit in general. Yeah, running away from misery of supporting this club.
So
I'd
I'm going to
say.
be the fat fuck now from Houston Wolves. So yeah. Hey boys, as these two guys can see, I went with the big gun whiskey today because holy hell, we're gonna need it. Where do we start? Okay, let's start with the good. The new kits are great. Okay, now on now on to the bad. Well, let's first talk about the departures. Okay, so we knew Ruben Neves was going to leave. We just didn't know where he was going to go. And surprise, surprise, it looked like the Saudis had bailed us out, Paul.
It did. That came as such a shock. It didn't think there was a market for him, and certainly a market for the amount that he eventually commanded. But up they popped and off he went, and it certainly appeared at the outset to do us a tremendous favour. And I'd say fair play to the man himself. He, in his initial interviews over there, he certainly hasn't sugarcoated it in terms of a step in the right direction for his career, in terms of wanting to go over there and win trophies and dominate the league or anything like that. He's put it purely in financial terms of setting up him and his family for life. So fair enough if that's the situation that he's putting himself in. And to be perfectly honest, he could comfortably do that in 2 years, head back to Europe and join the top team and probably get some silverware in the European competition and still be in his peak. So I still think it's a good move for player, for us as the club as well. But yeah, certainly surprised that it was a player of it, probably a player of his age and that segment of player that was the biggest shock of it all.
Alex, were you like me? And when you're hearing people that are, I thought it was great. Ruben Neves came, did a real emotional video, like true class act, just amazing. You could really feel the emotion. And then I see some dippy doos online that are like, if it was so hard for him, he wouldn't have left the club, blah, blah, blah. I'm sorry, dude. If somebody offers me 10 times my salary, I'm like, peace out. Oh, I gotta go to Saudi Arabia for a few years. You're gonna pay me how much? Okay, bye.
Yeah. Not on board with that. I mean, he wasn't staying anyway. So what does it matter? Like what he's getting paid. If anything, that justifies it even more. And just because it is hard because it's a decision he kind of had to make. So to act like he should have stayed if it was really that difficult a decision. Well, like any life decision this big is pretty difficult. And that's what
Yeah.
makes it an emotional thing, is that, yeah, like in an ideal world, Wolves can pay him what he's worth, but that's never going to happen because he's worth what somebody's willing to pay, So
Exactly.
it is what it is, man. I mean, I think for the club, it was obviously a great thing. It seems like a little bit of a bailout plan, but beyond that, I feel like it makes a return more realistic because, I mean, how much is he going to increase his value over the next couple of years in Saudi Arabia to the point where the club he's coming to next is going to be, to the level of Man City or, Barcelona, Real Madrid, whatever it may be. So maybe this will kind of put an end to that Barca dream, and maybe he'll be in budget 3 years from now or whenever he decides to make his return to the continent of Europe, if he does.
See, that's interesting. I actually would argue that with the way the Saudi sides are starting to load up, that could be a really competitive league soon. Like, I'm waiting to see which one of these networks snatches up the rights for it, because they're they're very clearly right now becoming like the Middle Eastern MLS as far as going after a lot of the kind of elite players that are reaching their end, but they're also getting some guys like Neves who are in their prime, paying a bunch of money, especially if Mbappe now goes over there for the $1 billion that they're paying him. That's turning into a sneaky good league, and I don't see that stopping anytime soon. What do you think, Paul?
I think it could go two ways. It could go the way that you're describing, but then it could be a big bubble that goes pop, and it could go the way that the Chinese league went, and that showed similar signs right at the outset that you had this clamour for those profile European players that for whatever reason didn't take off. It seems to me that there's something more behind it, though, that it does seem to have more sway, more pull for whatever reason. So I think it may have some extended life beyond what we saw from the Chinese Super League. But it does throw another total new dimension into it, and especially how quickly it came around as well, that it wasn't even a talking point this time last year wasn't
Wasn't even a
even
talking point 2 months
no,
ago when we
no, not at all. And even probably when we first started coming up on probably my radar was when the likes of Helder Costa went over there. So, oh yeah, he used to play for us. So there he goes. And then, oh, okay, Nuno's gone now. And then all of a sudden it explodes. So who knows? Could it burn out? Possibly. Could it keep on going the trajectory it's going? It could equally do that as well.
Yeah, I mean, you can't deny the money. You can't deny any of these guys going there for that amount of money. Same with what happened with the LIB golf tour and the PGA. I mean, that basically forced the PGA to have to make a deal to merge with them, because they were losing a lot of top talent for these ridiculous salaries. And, looking at the gas prices at the pump, that ain't going to end anytime soon. What's gas like up there right now, Alex? What's the price of gas?
Pretty steep. About between 370, 380 a gallon, I think right now. It's just not as bad as it used to be, but still pretty
See,
significant.
Paul, I always need to get this in perspective, because us in Houston, I saw it for 313 the other day, and I was like, it's so bad, because it was under 3 for a little bit. So
Yeah.
yeah, we got to keep it in perspective. So Neves was the big name leaving. There were a couple others that weren't so surprising. One of which was Connor Cody. I think we kind of thought he wouldn't stick around at Wolves. Now, it was very interesting to see where he went, Paul, with Leicester City kind of tagging him to be one of the guys to get them back to the EPL.
I thought it was quite a astute pickup in terms of a good caliber of pro, that it's a struggle when you drop down, and you do need that caliber of player that's got some experience, that can help to ultimately try and bounce back in that first season. And I think that type of signing could help them do that. I think what it did for us was, I think, allow him to depart under pretty good circumstances. And again, it was another deal that really worked out favorably, I think, for player, for buying club, and definitely for us as sellers. I think we got really good value out of what could have been a pretty difficult asset to move, given question marks over his position within the Lopetegui team, and the market for him in that specialist position that he most favours, either in the EPL, in the Premier League, or elsewhere. So I think all the bases were covered with his departure.
Alex, I was still a little sad to see him go for good, though.
Yeah, especially because it seemed like for a second he could be reintegrated into the squad, which would have just been really hard to imagine, like what that would look like. You know, to have a former club captain come back with a captaincy open, but also him probably not playing much at all. You know, so yeah, I was happy. I think it's a great move for him. Honestly, I think it's like exactly the level he's probably, you know, worth playing at this point. Um, and I have no hard feelings against Leicester, honestly. So you know, I kind of wish him well, wish him the best, but obviously it's sad to see this era that, you know, pulled us into being supporters, Josh, like almost slam
Yeah, I
shut in the
know.
course of a couple of months, you know.
And
They're all
it's
gone.
yeah, it's really crazy. I mean, you had it was such a fun team to root for too. I mean, you had Neves, who was the wonder kid, um, you know, Cody, who was that just typical leader, really stood out, played above his skill, if we're being honest. You know, and then all those fan favorites, which one of those fan favorites guys said goodbye earlier this week, and that was Raul heading off. It wasn't a surprise he got sold off because, in fact, at our season finale, Paul, everyone on the panel thought he would be sold off. It was where he went, and he went to Fulham for really cheap, £5 million. What was it, £5.5 million?
Yeah.
And he's there. It's a contract till 2025, so pretty interesting there. What did you think about the fit in the move, sending him to another EPL team?
Again, the market dictates where the players go, and I was really surprised that he picked up another EPL move. Now,
Yeah,
whether that is not so much of a panic buy from Fulham, but a quick realization that if Mitrovic is going to Saudi, they need someone to fill that hole, then they needed to act quick to plug it. Then that was probably why they acted pretty quick to get him in. But I just thought he was lined up for a swan song overseas in another European league, where he could join a relative contender that would be challenging for a domestic title and potentially a deepish run, maybe in the Europa or something. I always had the back of my mind that his salary expectations still at 31 might have put him out of that MLS or Liga MX discussion for like till this contract ends. So to move him on with that salary that he commanded, I think it was a 2-year deal with an option for a third. Not sure whether it's his option or the clubs. I think it's probably the clubs. Again, if you take the old gold tinted specs off, I think it's really, really good value. But I tell you what, out of him and Neves, I watched all of the Neves stuff like really fondly, and I could smile at it. I could enjoy it. I could think of the memories. I haven't watched a single clip of Raul's because it's just way too painful, because that was the pinnacle, you know.
Yeah.
His goals in Europe were the pinnacle. Even that semi-final goal, I know we lost, that was the pinnacle. And he was like the figurehead for that whole team, like the perfect number 9 in the perfect team of the best team I've ever seen the Wolves put out. So this one hurts.
Alex, was
Yeah.
that team the best that we're going to see Wolves ever be in the EPL?
Oh man. I mean, I hope not, but it's certainly starting to feel that way, given you know what I'm sure we'll talk about later, which is Fosun's really questionable management and questionable commitment to, advancing this project past that. And I think to even come close to being that, team that came in and finish in a Europa League spot, you probably need a guy like Raul, and I don't see one walking through the door anytime soon. And to Paul's point, I think what made it even more painful is that, well, one, it's a position they have failed over and over again to try to fill in his stead. And two, it was so abrupt. Like there was no adjustment period. When players age and they start to kind of lose a step or whatever it might be, you get used to it and you can accept it because you see it coming. And with Raul, it was like almost instantaneous. And we can point to a singular moment that changed, probably the next couple of years of Wolves' trajectory in the EPL. So that's tough to swallow. Yeah. So I hope the answer is I hope not, but I can't see it. I mean, like to think about the way him and Jota were playing together. Like it's just so hard to imagine a team like that, especially because we just haven't scored goals for years since, like my brain can't envision it.
Years plural now.
Yeah.
That's the worst thing about it.
What's crazy, Paul, is remember when he got hurt, Wolves were off to their best start ever in the EPL. And then he got hurt and it just all vanished. And it kind of really showed, as much as Cody was I feel like he was the heart of the team, you could really say Raul was the soul of the team. He was the one that everybody really fed off of. Do you feel like if he hadn't gotten injured, he would still be scoring goals in Molineux this year?
I think if he hadn't got injured, he'd have probably secured that top 4 move by now. Either to us or to top 4 Champions League caliber team in Europe. I think when there was speculation around him at Manchester United in maybe that pre-season before, whatever it was, I reckon that was wholly justified and he was generally getting looked at. But if he'd have continued on that trajectory at 29, he was at the time 30, he probably could have got that big move. There may have been like a domino effect with Harry Kane moving and him going to Spurs and having a swan song at Tottenham for a season or two and playing in Europe and scoring. So it could have gone 2 different ways, either benefiting us or benefiting him as a player.
What I find interesting about Cody, Neves, and Raul is a lot of the reaction has been the same, at least amongst the rational fans. It's been, man, we loved you here. You're always going to be a Wolf. We're not surprised you're leaving. And good luck. Hope you do great in your next stop. Obviously, there are the people that are complaining, oh, Neves just went for the money, or, oh, Raul has been worthless for a couple of years. But, for the most part, it's all been positive towards the players, which I think, again, talks a lot about the fan base, that this is a fan base that really connects with the players a lot and really grows to love them, not just as players, but as people. Has that always been the case, Paul? You felt like with the city?
Yeah, very much. It goes to the characteristics of the city and in turn the fan base. Again, that blue collar mentality. If you give it all in that jersey, then the fans will love you for it. You don't have to be the best player out there, like Cody. You don't have to be the best sweeper in the whole world, but you give your absolute everything and it'll show, and the fans will lap it up and repay you with that love tenfold. So I think that it does talk to the profile of player that they managed to sign over the project, that it checked every box pretty much in those players that were real off. Like Nuno saw the qualities in Cody to transition him. Jota, Neves, Raul, all very, very similar in profile of hard working on the pitch. Fans warm to them for that hard work off the pitch. Family men, good in the community, never get into any trouble, anything like that. It was all done really well, and it did really reflect positively on the club and them as individuals.
So while those three were expected, the other one that kind of came out of the blue was somebody who I actually thought last fall was going to be our best signing of last summer's transfer window, and that was Nathan Collins. Really came out of nowhere, Alex, to see him leave to really a team in a very similar situation for us, a non-Big Six.
Yeah, I have to be honest. Even though he wasn't playing, so I mean, you gotta, I guess, commend Wolves for getting a return on a player that didn't really play under Lopetegui. I just don't love the idea of signing a young player who you've clearly identified who has a ton of upside, and just giving up on him as a developmental, not that he's a developmental player, he was already at the level, right? But like just giving up on that before you even could see like what he can really do. I don't love that he went to Brentford. And I mean that with the utmost respect to Brentford, because they're really good at identifying players. So like, I know Wolves want to sell to get the money. So at that point, it's not like they're evaluating the talent evaluators of the people who are coming for their players. But as a fan, like if Brighton or Brentford are after one of my guys, I feel better about that guy. I want to keep him. So I'm nervous that he's actually going to end up being great for them. Which would, should be tough to take, I think, given them being in that race to kind of try to crack the same bubble that everyone else, other than the ones who already exist in it, and now Newcastle have done, are trying to do.
It was really weird, Paul, because Wolves had just got through saying they wanted to kind of build like the way they used to, where they targeted young, talented players that wanted to be at Wolves. And if you ever read any of his interviews, he was very vocal. He was very vocal for the team. I thought he could be a future captain. And he was very vocal about how much he liked the squad, even when he wasn't playing. So I think that's why I was pretty confused by the move, Paul.
I think I often saw potentially a bigger upside in him than Kilman in terms of a lot of those qualities that you identify, in terms of at least beginning to show some of those leadership qualities. He did obviously have his rough edges, not as polished or accomplished on the ball as Kilman is, but a good few years younger, so he's got that developmental time. So that didn't kind of sit right with me along to those points that Alex mentions about those teams that potentially picking him up. But what stood out to me was that it was a move like straight away. Pretty much as soon as Dawson came in, he was gone. So right at the start, was he ever a Lopetegui guy? It says to me no. So if that's the case, if you can get a return on a guy that the coach isn't all in on, and he doesn't seem to be one that's going to be a nurturing coach or that a developmental coach, at the same time, I wouldn't get the impression that Collins, even though he's of that age profile, he wouldn't want certainly another season of sitting on a bench when he needs to be kicking on at that stage in his career and getting those minutes and increasing the development that way. So I probably saw it that the manager wasn't all in on him. Maybe those above him were, in terms of they identified that talent before Lopetegui came in. Probably Large was in on him and wanted him in. but with Lopetegui coming in, if he wasn't going to play this season, probably the player wasn't going to be satisfied with another season on the bench. If he's going to a team that's going to play a slightly different system that maybe complements his skill set a little bit better, maybe not have so much exposure on him in terms of the setup that they play in the formation, it could suit him to a T. He could well shine in that particular formation, the team that he's playing, based on the expectations of what he's got in that new role versus being one of two centre backs in the back four.
I was just really disappointed. He was a guy I feel like played well early on. Okay, he may have, karate kicked somebody in the chest. It happens to the best of us, right, guys?
Oh yeah.
And I felt like he never really recovered. And for a lot of fans, that was tough for them to kind of get over him doing that. But I do feel like that one was going to be a mistake. So there are some other names that have either left via freeze or could be leaving soon. Obviously, Moutinho and Diego Costa, they both left and got nice parting videos when it was pretty urgently. They weren't going to be re-signed. Sounds like Podence is getting the old heave-ho at some point. I mean, he's not even with the team right now in Portugal, and they're trying to sell him on, which I think is the right move. We don't really know. Still trying to figure out Fabio's deal. I will bring up, guys. Also, the one that was kind of surprising was not Hoover going out on loan, but the fact that Chiquinho went out on loan as well. Paul, what were your thoughts on that?
I thought it was quite smart, actually, in the way that it's structured, in that he was young enough and not quite that fulcrum of the team when he did get hurt, in that he can have that developmental time away from the team playing competitive football to come back from a serious injury without being rushed or without any of the pressure that might come from Premier League football. And he can have it kind of with the focus not being on him so much. I think the other thing that factors into that is, depending on how Lopetegui wants to roll out his formation this season, I don't think the natural winger position that it looks like Chiquinho favours, or his skill set favours, is going to jive with Lopetegui's preferred formation. If that was the case, I think they would rather have him playing competitive football week in, week out than being stuck on the bench, maybe getting a fleeting 15, 20 minutes if they're trying to salvage something from a game, bringing him on to try and add that spark. So I think it's fairly well set up that he could go and kill it in the Championship, and then we have got that recall option in January, and he could come back round to go and all systems go, and he's firing when he comes back. So again, we just seen that. We'll come on to it. It's another body out the door. That's all I'm going to say right now. It's another body out the door.
Well, and Alex, I brought it up. Let's see. A lot of departing. Looks like Podence is leaving. Chiquinho's already out the door. Guedes was already gone. I will say, our boy is still out there, and he has not gotten a goodbye video from Wolves. Whereas everybody else has that left. Maybe it's still alive.
I mean, yeah, I keep hoping. Where's this money to pay him going to come from, if his salary demands are really what they are, and that's why he hasn't gotten the interest from other sources. I don't know where Wolves are going to get that money.
Yeah, Paul, here's my question, because you have a better pulse on the actual heart of Wolverhampton and not just what Wolves Twitter says. How is Adama viewed in Wolverhampton? I mean, that documentary that came out was fantastic on him and really showed how impactful he was with the community. But is that a guy that you feel like most people that go to the games are hoping can be re-signed?
I think in an ideal world, if everything was equal, you everybody would have an Adama Traore, at least certainly in their squad, because it is so unique. And again, like playing for Wolves, playing for whomever, very few players will ever get you off your seat to the extent that Traore did and can still do. So I think it's very naive if you'd ever turn your nose up at a player of his skill set and what he's capable of. Now, again, is that can you trust him to do it week in, week out? He's certainly had purple patches in our jersey, but he's never had it consistently over a long period. So that's what I mentioned. Is he that streaky player that you can have off the bench or start against certain opponents, tweak your formation to accommodate him? I'm not sure we've got that luxury anymore. But as an individual, again, as a human being, and again, just checks all the boxes of someone that you look at as proud of when they're putting that jersey on, for sure.
I mean, look, Napoli has supposedly dropped out, and Milan's kind of, not really thinking about it right now. He would still be free, wouldn't cost a transfer fee. I'm holding out hope that deal still stands too, guys. The hair will be going, blonde if Adama resigns.
Here's another extension of that. When we last had some bad news around the financial situation, and there wasn't any money to take up Semedo's option, what happened a day or two after? Semedo's option got taken up. So
Yeah.
who knows if that contract's on the table? That could certainly come from left field. Who knows?
I just think it's interesting that Moutinho and Costa in the same situation, they both got goodbye videos right away. And we still haven't seen Adamas. And I think he's
Yeah.
one of those guys that deserved a video. If he, and I really feel like they're waiting until it's a for sure he's not coming back, or
Yeah,
maybe he is.
I fully agree. I think there's a contract offer definitely on the table for him. It's not being taken back. I think the departure of Raul will help in that I don't think Traore will be seen as a top earner anymore. I don't think he could command that spot, but he could be in that higher echelons. And I think if that contract offer is still out there and he's without a club as you approach the start of the season, then you've got to think that it's a possibility. I thought it was particularly interesting that a player of similar characteristics or similar profile in Wilfried Zaha went to Galatasaray. In the again, if that market's there in Saudi, why didn't he go there chasing the bucks? Like Traore could easily go there, you'd imagine. So if that was part of his motivation, then that would have been wrapped up a long time ago. So
And especially when you look at the Saudis and then look at the documentary, I mean, there is the religious factor that kind of goes in there. I won't even begin to act like I know all the ins and outs about, everything that goes on in Saudi, but there is a larger Muslim population there. So you'd think, well, maybe, I don't know.
Yeah. It could be a marriage of convenience. at the end of the day. I would put the hair dye in the cart, but maybe don't like buy it yet. Just have it in your Amazon cart. You don't have to click buy, but get it ready. It feels like if there were to be a reunion, it would just be like, they're the last two people in the bar, last call. Well, I'm here, you're here, so we doing this thing or what? And it's kind of like working out for both sides, I think.
You know what? Sometimes those end up being the best relationships, right?
Yeah, I know, it definitely could be.
I mean, I don't know any examples, but you never know, right? I'm sure there's somebody out there. There's somebody out there.
This is like turning into a late night talk show. We're going to be getting like people calling in saying that that's how I met my future spouse, or
yeah.
got listeners across the country.
Dear Casey. It's just interesting. You don't make documentaries about guys who are out the door, a couple weeks later. That's just me. I don't know. So we've kind of been talking a little bit about it, guys, but let's really dig deep into the clusterfuck that has been this week. We thought after, you make 47 million selling Neves, you make 23 million selling Collins, 8.5 selling Cody, 5.5 selling Raul. Oh, FFP is not a problem, right, Paul? Well, now there's other stuff that's a problem. Like what? It's very hard to keep track of what all is going on.
Yeah, it does. I've kind of given up on it, to be honest, in that you can't do it because we see barely a fraction of what goes on behind the scenes. So it's proved itself that it can't be FFP anymore.
There's
it
no
surely
way.
Can't be. And I think there's people a lot smarter than me that have proved it on social media to the penny that it can't be that anymore. Can it be the moving goalposts of a Chinese conglomerate that probably have a number of fingers in the pie from their government, and considerable goalposts get moving on a regular basis? Could well be. Is that the pains of being owned and operated by that type of organization? Unfortunately, yeah, it's an investment company. They're not going to throw lock, stock, and barrel at it. We have to take the rough with the smooth as far as that goes. But just to have that narrative continually change or not have any real clarity or clearness of direction, it is so hard to wrap your head around, really. No one is coming out, and I know that they can't come out and give any transparency with this, but just some leadership, just some clear direction, an idea of the strategy. I think Hobbs has done a pretty good job as far as that's concerned up to a point. But then this is where it gets crazy, in that you get the manager coming out doing his own interviews in club colours with his friend, saying completely the opposite, in that he's got no idea of what's going on. It's different. We're not on plan A or plan B anymore. I've got no idea of what's going on with transfers. Raul was here 1 minute. He's not here today anymore. I didn't know he's being sold, and it's just even at the very basics of having a somewhat just of a semblance of a PR strategy, they are an utter shambles, a complete and utter shambles, which again, like Chinese, the like business, like down to a T. This is how, like, close shop, boom, boom, boom. This is how we do it. Like, what's going on? If he's just going out on his own and like saying, I'm going to do my own media. You know, I'm not sticking to anything you guys are telling me. Off I go. I'm going to do this kiss and tell. It's just crazy. So forget all that. Is it just a big stunt? Is that checkbook really going to open up? You know, and I just don't know anymore. I generally don't know.
I really feel bad for Lopetegui because he was clearly brought on. They sold him, said, this is what the plan's going to be. Then he has to find out through the media, oh, psych, no, that's not what the plan's going to be. So he goes up there and was like, you guys need to tell me what's going on. They supposedly do say, hey, here's the outline. And this summer, he's like, okay, yeah, I'm sticking on board. And then that's out the window, too. I would have left already, Alex. And I feel like in the next couple weeks, if one of these Saudi teams does come after him, I at this point, he's not dedicated enough to Wolves to deal with this nonsense that he's having to deal with.
Yeah, I agree, and I would completely understand it from his end. I mean, it's really worrisome to me that this is the second off season or summer transfer window in a row that we're sitting here questioning how the men's first team football club of Wolverhampton Wanderers, like whether or not it's a priority for Fosun. And I feel like the more we sit here year after year and do that, the more the answer just becomes clear. I mean, last year we were talking about, mocking quotes about them talking about esports. And we were saying like the esports brand is worth nothing if the actual club badge is worn by a bunch of bums in League One, right? Like that's just not the way it works. Now we're, completely perplexed, like by what financial fair play rules are and all of these different things. And to me, I feel like what happened is Lopetegui, who's a very, very serious football guy, came to Wolves and is realizing like, oh, this is not a very serious football club. Like you guys watch Succession, like the famous Logan Roy gif when he finally says to his kids, like, I love you, but you're not serious people. Like, I feel like Lopetegui finally had it, and he's like, all right, they're just not serious football people. Like, I'll take the paychecks, I'll do what I can, but like that is extremely, extremely worrying to me. But again, like, tomorrow they could announce Alex Scott and Adama Traore signs and whatever. Like, what do we know? But the signs to me are pretty clear that this is less and less a priority for Fosun. Couple that with the fact that they were looking for outside investment, and like we're also questioning whether they're not going to sell. Like, how much would you invest in the club if you were them, if you're not even sure you're going to keep it?
And that is something you always have to worry about. You see that a lot in American sports. When the team's getting ready to sell, they like to clear the payroll as much as possible and everything. But there's no relegation in American sports. And that's where the issue becomes, because like you said, how valuable does the brand become if they drop down? And I think what's really got to be frustrating for him is you look at the Wolves, what they can field right now for a starting 11. It's a good team. That's a team that can compete with a lot of is it going to break top 6, top 7? Probably not. But can it compete in that level? Yeah, absolutely. But they need the depth. I mean, one injury is just going to destroy this team. And I had hoped, Paul, we learned our lesson last year. Don't wait until a month into the season when you're already in a hole and then you're trying to bed players in. But it's becoming the same old story, right?
Yeah. I'm in agreement that on paper, you look at that side and you're one starting midfielder potentially, or one starting attacking midfielder out of a decent side. Admittedly, you got a question mark over the centre forward. As it stands, is that Fabio? Can he do it? Is that Sasa? Is he injury prone? Maybe there's a question mark long term over someone like Dawson, that you need to get his heir apparent through the door really
like
now.
A Nathan Collins.
Yeah, kind of. but that this is where it extends to where the issue is for me is the bench and the depth. And everyone was staggered when we trotted out the bench this time last season away at Leeds, when it was a bunch of reserve defenders, couple of kids, and that was about it. As it stands, it's looking even worse than that. And not only is there no real reserves on there because we've sold them, it looks like we're selling the kids as well, so they won't be on there.
There better be like a 50% sell-on clause with Ryan Giles. Like,
so
that's I guess
it's those aspects. It's what's the plan. My only saving grace to all of this is Lopetegui still here, and
yeah.
if he is of the caliber that he is as a coach, if it is that much of a shit show behind the scenes, I don't think he's the type of person who'd stick around, contract or not. I think he'd walk and say, screw it, I don't care about the money. I could go and get a Saudi job and easily make up 6 months in lost wages, by going over there. So that's my only saving grace, but I need something to give me at least a little faith of what's going on behind the scenes to justify that.
I think a way to really see how the communication is just failing at the club is the way this home kit was announced. It was very interesting. They announced the goalkeeper and then the away and then the third kit, and you're waiting for the home kit. And I think most of us were on the same wavelength that they're trying to pull a Neves here, because everybody has viewed that as like the iconic kit drop was, hey, here's Neves and here's the home kit. And that just like blew it up. Great strategy, I feel like, from marketing, from the social media team, which through all of the bad stuff, they're doing their job, and they're doing their job really well right now. But then Alex Scott didn't happen. I think, Alex, you even pointed out, I feel like they were waiting that was going to be it. Alex Scott and the home kit, go buy it. And it didn't happen. And by then the kit's released everywhere. And it's like, I mean, they even said it on Twitter. Well, we didn't want you guys to see this early, but here you go.
Yeah. The timing was suspiciously close to when plan A and plan B, as Lopetegui referenced, both were scrapped by the club. So yeah, the Wolves social media team deserves so much better than the club that they actually work for. I'm sure the people are great, but like the quality of their content compared to the quality of what's on the pitch, there's a big mismatch there, man.
Yeah, and like, let's go back to the Neves video. I'm gonna guess that wasn't his idea. Like, hey, I want to shoot a video. That was approached by Josh over there or Gemma or somebody, and he said, yeah, let's do it. And I really feel like I was trying to think in sports, just in general, where have we ever seen anything like that? And the only thing I could think was Peyton Manning when he left the Colts to go to the Broncos. That was the only thing possible. They've been doing a fantastic job. Even Raul, man, that video was really good. Paul, I know you haven't watched it. It took me a day to watch it as well. I was a little bummed out. So yeah, I mean, I feel like they had a great idea. It's a beautiful home kit. They figured we'll throw Alex Scott in there and this is going to sell like hotcakes. And it would have. It absolutely would have, Paul.
Yeah, I do. I think it was all lined up for that. And even to the extent that I think they said, oh, you weren't supposed to see it as soon as that was based. It wasn't based on the video that followed the next day, I think it was, because even that, it's certainly better than what I could do. It didn't have that typical finesse that their previous productions have done, for kit launches and things like that, or you compare it to that Joe Gomez reveal, like
Yeah,
night and day in terms of quality. So
nobody's gonna beat
even
that. That was great.
yeah, even that looked a little rushed and cobbled together for my liking. And yeah, I don't know. Is that just us clinging to some fanciful hope that they actually have got a plan with all this going on? Who knows?
Well, I think they did have a plan. I mean, because they always release the home kit first, and
Yeah,
I mean that's just, especially since they never wear the away kit. Maybe this year they'll wear it more than twice. We'll have to see. I think, yeah, the social media team was. I think they brought up, hey, this did really well, and they're like, oh, we're gonna get somebody. We're gonna get somebody good. Okay, and you can only wait so long. Now the seasons are right around the corner. You can't be like, well, hell, we're gonna sell these jerseys now, but you guys aren't gonna have them by the opener. That would be an even bigger. That would be a merchandising disaster for them. So I, I like what you said, Alex. You feel bad for them. They deserve to be at a better run club right now.
They're a top 6 media squad.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. They are Champions League media squad, 100%. Um, well, I guess we're kind of glossing over the fact we have made one addition, and it's an old face, Paul. How excited were you that Matt Doherty is back in the old gold?
sentimentally, I love it. Just the memories and everything. And in terms of a squad, I don't think it's a bad shout at all. That if he's coming in, if he's the go-to guy off the bench, that he can turn to and look at some experience to bring on if he's looking to close out a game. If he's looking to change the shape and go 5 at the back for whatever reason, I think it's a good call. But I'm just worried that you're scraping the barrel if it's you're looking to pick up these wastes and strays on free side, like free transfers, and for a right back that hasn't exactly excelled at playing right back, where he's certainly glory days for us. We're in a totally different position in effect.
Yeah, 100%.
Always played well with Traore though. Who knows?
They did have some great moments, Alex. What were your thoughts on that signing?
Yeah, I think it makes good sense to get him on a free as a guy who knows the club. I mean, even you don't want to read too far into social media videos, but his whole first day video, like every signing gets, he seems to get along with a ton of everybody there. He knows everyone pretty well. And I thought it was also clear they want to move on from Johnny, who I know he played both left and right back, but he was also kind of the only backup right back behind Semedo last year, and I don't see that changing now with everything that's going on. And I don't really feel like Dexter Limbakisa is someone that Lopetegui is going to be starting in a Premier League game anytime soon. So
I think he's going to get loaned out too.
Yeah, which I think would be good for him because I think he needs to play because he could be an actual serious right back in the future. So, yeah, I think it's great. I mean, you need that kind of depth, experience can do a job, I suppose. Can't argue with any of that. And just a likable guy. I mean, his attitude, I think, is like, perfectly encapsulates what a lot of people, including myself, liked about the scrappy kind of punchy Wolves when they came up into the EPL.
Yeah, he was definitely one of those guys that played better than his talent. And that's a good thing. That's not meaning to diminish his talent because he's obviously a very talented player, but you need guys on your team that perform better than their talent. And that Wolves squad for a couple of years, that's what it was mostly. I mean, yeah, you had guys like Neves and Adama who you could say at that point were playing to their talent, but man, everybody else was overshooting it, which is fantastic. So, Paul, I mean, what are we looking at this point? Can we expect incomings? If we do, who are we coming? Is Alex Scott? Uh, is that dead? I don't know. What are your predictions?
I think there's been too much smoke without fire around Scott to rule it out, even to this point. There, I can't put my finger on it. It's so up in the air. It's so badly it portrays the club in such a bad light, how it's all been handled and how we're coming across. That's the most frustrating thing for me. I think Scott's still in the picture. I think there've been the couple of kids mentioned from Man City. I think that's probably come out in terms of them having their list of players that have either been approached or got a wish list for certain positions. I think one of them is in if Scott falls through for whatever reason, I think it's probably McAtee as his replacement, or the other one, I forget who, as the alternate there. Probably one of them maybe is another midfielder. There still seems to be a lot of midfielders linked, even though we're fairly well stacked. So I don't know. It's just so you can't talk about anything with any solidity at the moment, because you just don't know what's going on.
Nope, the dog doesn't like it either, Paul. Alex, do you think the only reason Lopetegui is here is because he loves the thought of Alex Scott in a Wolves jersey that much, and he's holding out hope?
I think it's because he made it very clear in his interview he loves the Premier League, and it's just we just happen to be a team in the Premier League with an opening where he could come and do a job and look good and then move on. I don't know. That's what I'm starting to believe. I mean, Alex Scott would be great. I'm sure that's a player that he would really want that offers something Wolves don't have and can really use. But I don't know. I mean, like the beginning of the window, I know they haven't gotten anybody through really, but there were at least rumors, right? There were talks. There were talks that were basically confirmed by reputable outlets. And the fact that those have basically, the fact that when I wake up in the morning and I do my usual like hour of scrolling in bed on Twitter and I got nothing about Wolves, it's really depressing, you know? So
Yeah, when you look up to I always first thing I do is look at Talking Wolves because they do a good job just aggregating everything, going through a lot of the nonsense. And when I see like no updates, it's like, oh,
I know. And that's really slowed, you know. Like last we knew it was like, okay, the 20 million offer got rejected for Alex Scott, but Wolves are maybe going to go back in,
yeah,
for like 25, and that's basically the asking price that Bristol City set to begin with. So it really seemed great, but who knows where that's at now. I just have, it's so hard to have any optimism based on the tone in Lopetegui's interview because it was so sour. It was very clearly so fresh after whatever it is that actually happened.
Yeah. I think this Alex Scott thing, I don't necessarily think it's the 20 to 25 billion that's holding it up. I think it's going to be the sell-on clause, which ultimately is why this falls through. I think Bristol City is wanting a good sell-on clause, rightfully so, and I don't think Wolves are going to do it. And I think Fosun has shown they're really bad negotiators. Like, really,
just do the sell-on clause. You did it with 8 Nori. Like,
yeah. Well, and it's so funny. Bristol City goes, okay, we want 25 million. Okay, we'll give you 18 million for sleep. No, we want 25 million. Okay, how about 20 million? No, we want 25 million. Like, it's very clear. They've set the price. They're waiting for you to hit that. Like, there's no negotiating. And I felt like Fosun did such a good job negotiating João Gomez and stuck to the guns and everything. But on some of these others, it's like, guys, come on. We're talking about a couple £1,000,000, and then you're raising ticket prices. This is another thing I wanted to talk about, Paul. So I'm sure Alex, kind of in line with me here. The tickets went up again for Wolves games, and I saw a lot of people very upset at it. But you convert that to dollars, and you're like, man, I wish the local teams out here were charging those prices. Who do you think's right in this case? Do you think it's right for us Americans to look at it and go, man, that's still pretty cheap? Or for the Wolves people who are like, this is ridiculous?
It's definitely the Wolves saying it's ridiculous for twofold. A, it's product on the pitch, which hasn't been great for seasons now. But the second is infrastructure, and Alex can talk to this a little bit. Molyneux's a shithole. Like
it's a beautiful one.
It's beautiful shithole.
It's
got
like Wrigley
character.
Field, a beautiful shithole.
It's got character, but you compare it to any top tier stadia in the US, baseball, MLS, NFL, light years behind. Absolutely. The Steve Ball stand, which was, I forget how much that was in terms of the amount it put up, something like, might have been £58 a match, I think, top tier. It 40 years old. You can bet, like, if for anyone over 5'8", you've got no leg room. You have to go down early to get any, like, miss the game to get any type of concession, because they've got haven't got capacity for concessions there. The toilets are absolutely disgrace, like health hazard. Like generally, the thing is falling down practically, and it comes full circle to being owned by an investment company. Are they going to put any money into redeveloping that ground? No. So
people are still paying the prices. Yeah.
Yeah. Is it more expensive to go to the Houston Texans? Yeah, it is. Is the infrastructure, is the service there better in terms of fan experience, like night and day as a consumer? To sit down and watch the product, which what it is. What we've got to worry about as a collective fan base, either here and back in England, is that is going to drive out those fans in the immediate locality. The club aren't going to be overly concerned about that, because it's not where the bulk of revenue is coming from. It's coming from the TV deals around the world. Okay, that's fine. That's not gonna be altered. But then there'll be no atmosphere will come across if you've got a 3/4 full stadium, because the real passion, the real outpouring of support can't afford to go to the game anymore. They're not there. They're watching it in a pub on a illegal stream, because they can't afford to go. That's missing. That won't come across on the TV. That won't support the team. You take away Traore, you take away Raul. Who's the overseas audience going to warm to anymore?
That's a great point. That's a great point.
They're really on the cusp of fucking themselves over if they don't handle this better going forwards. A, for the local fan base. B, for the club in general, and put them both together. They need to sort this shit out. Otherwise, it could go drastically wrong.
So it's interesting, and I had a couple of good conversations online with Danny from Baltimore Wolves, our longtime guest, and then Stu from the Fancast. Stu did a great job as far as he even sent me today like a list of what pints cost at one of the pubs overseas, which was interesting. Did you know Corona's one of the most expensive ones over there, Alex? Thought that was
Oh,
interesting.
really?
Yeah. But to really show like a comparative of the prices, and obviously I haven't been over there yet, hoping to make it over this year. So I can't comment on the economy. All I can look at is go, look at the prices. But Paul also brings up the great point. Teams don't make their bulk of their revenue on ticket sales. Those are kind of an afterthought. You make it on TV. And so do they really care about the people of Wolverhampton who are starting to get priced out of the tickets?
Yeah, I don't know if they do. I mean, I'll say this: I'm self-aware, right? Like I'm an American fan coming over. The globalization of the game is part of the reason that I'm there. But because I also love the club, I want the club to do right by its like true supporters, even though by some people's definition, like you and I would not be a true supporter. We'd be the people who are willing to pay, upwards of £100 to go over because, I'm traveling overseas.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So of course
I'm
not
not gonna get cheap when I get there and be like,
I'm not gonna care that a ticket is, 50 something as opposed to 40 something pounds because like it's the whole purpose of me being there. But with that being said, I mean, to Paul's point, I empathize, sympathize with the people who, have that point of view that like it's not necessarily, the product that they're getting for the price rising is like not it's not hand in hand. Because I also, I happen to go somewhere else, hate the club, but great match day experience at Spurs, and I went to a rainy Thursday night against Southampton, and they, I at halftime I'm at a microbrewery, and I could choose between like 12 different beers instead of having to chug like Carling, which is the only beer you can get at Molineux, and then go piss out all that Carling in a toilet that I would like, am like scared to go near, like, so I completely agree with everything that Paul said. So like if I were there and I were going to every game and it wasn't a special occasion where you're like, I want to embrace this because it's the beauty of it. Like it's not the beauty of it when it's your everyday life. So, or, your every Saturday life. So I don't know. I'm kind of conflicted in that sense, because I love doing it. And I think it's great. I think more Americans should go and I want to go again. But at the same time, like, hey, we're kind of, we're kind of screwing it at the same time.
Yeah. It just goes to, again, the difference on how Americans view sports as opposed to other countries, because we've almost become used to paying those high prices. Well, not almost, we have become used to it. I mean, in the NFL, you have to purchase a PSL in order to purchase season tickets. Like, really, it's an absurd thing. And Danny brought it up on Twitter, which was a great point. He said, that is more of the Americanizing of sports overseas, which isn't a good thing. And it's like,
right.
yeah, it makes total sense. And while I look at the ticket price and I'm like, man, I wish the Dynamo even had season tickets for that price for that many games. I get where people are coming from as well. So it is interesting, and it again shows that Fosun is kind of tone deaf right now. You don't sell off all your players and not have any incomes, and reports are coming out that you want to make $50 million profit before you spend anything, and you jack up your prices. It's like, what are you doing? What are you doing?
Yeah,
I don't.
I also think, like, I mean, and I'm a big NFL fan. To me, well, the NFL may have started in a similar fashion. Here's this group of the Green Bay Packers. They're just this community team in Green Bay. Like, there's 32 NFL teams that are scattered all throughout our massive country. There's something, inherently more communal about English football, and that's a point.
Absolutely.
It's like imagine condensing the entire NFL and putting them all in Texas, and they played in one league, but there's 4 tiers of it. It would be absolutely mad. So, I mean, it's supposed to be a representation of your community, right? I just don't know that it's fair to compare that to the NFL, which is just far more commercial than anything. It's not like, supposed to be a stadium full of people from your community that go every Saturday to see, some guys from down the road. I don't know. It's not apples to apples from that sense. So I get
Yeah,
why
I think
the cost
I
shouldn't be apples to apples.
I think if you were going to compare the EPL to any sport in the US, it would be college football.
Right.
One of those
Yeah.
where, there's a reason the stadiums are so much bigger in college football. It's because they're just worried about getting people in, whereas the NFL will have smaller stadiums because it's all the upgrades and the suites and everything. So they're looking to bring in the high dollar people, which, kind of to Paul's point, is pricing out, like, quote unquote, the true fans. College football doesn't do that because there's 100,000 tickets available. Paul, do you feel like this other report that came out that Fosun wants to have $50 million profit before they spend, do you think that's a legit report?
Again, I wouldn't be surprised, but I could see some reasoning behind it, and I don't know what that is. And is it ownership structure? Is it Chinese government? Are they prepping for a sale? Who knows? Are we going through these hard times now, knowing that in 2 or 3 years' time we're gonna be freer and looser, while the likes of Everton and Villa might be totally screwed when FFP really kicks in, when they change the name of it or whatever. It's changing the narrative. What's so frustrating to me, and just trying to pinpoint the reasons why, and just having that real lack of knowledge about it.
Okay, guys, I'm going to give you some names first, of people on the squad. You say whether they're staying or going. And then I'm going to give you some names of some rumors, and you tell me percentage wise what you think it is that they're coming in. So first, we'll start with the outgoings. Podence. Paul, what's the percentage on him leaving?
98% gone.
98%. Alex?
Yeah, 95.
Yeah, because I feel
high.
like there's always that possibility nobody wants him. But we're definitely not going to get our money back for him. But, is what it is. Max Kilman, Paul.
I think that's 50-50.
Oh,
still.
Wow.
Who's going to be playing center back? You? Come on now.
Toady.
Ah, man. I'll go 5%. I think he's going to be the next club captain. They just don't have any other center backs. They've got 3 recognized senior center backs, right? Am I missing anybody? I mean, I feel like that's it right now. Dawson, Toady, and
Dawson.
Kilman.
Oh my God, you're right. Because they can't even pull back Mosquero because he signed on for the rest of the year.
He's gone. I think Deion Sanderson is gone. Not that he's like Premier League quality. I don't know what happened to Loanwick, the Dutch guy who was out on loan. I haven't heard it. Oh yeah, exactly. See, they're like anyone who could even possibly step in and be forced into a role they're not ready for is also gone. So please.
Does this mean Johnny is coming at center back?
Oh my God.
Yeah, I'd kind of lean more towards you, Alex, but at the same time, I don't. Fosun's kind of in a selling thing, so I'm gonna set it at 25%. But it wouldn't shock me. Jose Sa, Paul.
Ooh, I think that's 50-50 as well.
Alex?
Not based on him having to move. I think if if all the dominoes are in place and a checkbook miraculously gets open, I think he brings in his own keeper that he really wants.
Alex?
Yeah, I'm thinking similar range. I'll say like 40% gone.
It's just getting late in the window. I kind of think like 20% at this point. Although, oh man, I would love if Matt Turner could find his way to Wolves on just a loan deal, even just a loan with an option. I would be just ecstatic. And that goes back to Paul's point as far as who is the person that is going to draw the US viewers if Adama and Raul are gone. And that would be Matt Turner. Aitnery, who may be making appearances at winger, Paul, but do you see him staying or going?
Ooh, yeah. Aidnary, I'm going to caveat this. I see him 80% going, but only on loan.
Okay, interesting. Alex?
I'm starting to think that because they just need bodies, he may stick around. I'll say 30% chance he leaves. And I'll say, to your point, Josh, if this is going to be like a 4-4-2 thing, he could end up finally getting a true shot at that left midfield role he played in the FA Cup.
Yeah.
Kind of well in the FA Cup, actually.
I'm gonna say 15%, and it's because he changes positions. That's what I think. Adama, what are the percentages, Paul? Oh no, did he
To
crash?
start the season.
Oh, okay. Okay, you pause there for a second, Paul. Okay, go ahead.
5% that he's a player at the start of the season.
5%. Okay.
Yeah.
Alex?
Yeah, slim chances. 12%.
I'm gonna say 32.37% because I'm an optimist.
Okay.
No evidence whatsoever. It's just in my heart. It's in my heart. Okay. Now let's look at some of the names. Alex Scott, Paul. What do you think?
75% that we sign him. Pretty confident.
That would just change the atmosphere so much. What do you think, Alex?
I will say 50-50 on that one.
50-50? I'm also going to say 50-50. It should be a lot higher. They should be willing to do it, but I don't know what the hell the financials are. It's kind of just ridiculous. Oh, I forgot on the current guys. Fabio, Paul.
Yeah.
Ooh. 50-50.
50-50. Interesting.
Yeah.
Alex?
I will say that he is 30%. I'll say 30% chance of going. I'm starting to think, again, out of necessity, they just need guys who are already on the books that he's going to stay. Which I would actually be kind of happy with. It's time to sink or swim. Like, you're not going to sign a better striker, so just keep him and let's put this to bed, whether or not he can play or not. Like, let's do this.
I've been saying all along, I thought Fabio wasn't going to play an Iron game with in a Wolves kit. I've changed my mind. And I think it's because what you just said, Alex, you need bodies at some point. And I think with the way Fosun is getting rid of guys, I still think Jeff Shee doesn't want to admit he failed on that one. So unless they get a profit off of it, which I don't see it happening. Yeah, I'm gonna say that they have to do something to keep Lopetegui, and Fabio may be it. Because you can't go in with just Cunha and Sasa and Big Sassy in there. It's just not gonna
Yeah.
happen.
So do you think his mind could change? Because that was the big thing I feel like earlier was that it was clear, and I believe it was the Wolfpack on Twitter who like also spoke to his agent, and he was very candid in saying that like he's looking to move, like he does not want to be in Wolverhampton. But with Raul finally actually gone,
Mhm.
like how if you're him and you're like, well, you're kind of just going to have to play striker for this Premier League team this year and probably start games. That's got to weigh into your decision making, right? I mean, come on.
Well, and this is the first time that I've really felt like they're gonna tell him tough shit. Like,
Yeah.
because I agree with you. If they get rid of him, who are you bringing in at striker at this point? Um, if you're saying you're broke, you can't afford to be selling him probably at a loss, maybe getting what you paid, and then bringing in somebody else worth a poo.
Yeah.
So yeah, I know I've just completely switched gears after everything I've been saying for a whole year, but kind of based on
I
the
love it.
situation. Yeah. Yeah, I'm gonna be a realist. And
Yeah.
and like I said all along, it's good. I wanted Fabio back. I just didn't think it would happen. And I think at this point, Fosun has to stick to their guns with something. They're not doing anything else.
Yeah.
So Nico
And
Aveldi.
don't get me
Oh, go
wrong.
ahead.
I was going to say, don't get me wrong. I do have big hopes for Big Sassy this year. And I think there's a certain amount of marketability to just like his
Mhm.
height and kindness. Right, Paul, being 6'7" and likable is a nice thing, right? Could get you places.
Get
But
you working
I
for
think
Ford.
but I think that they are at least aware enough now to realize 2 ACLs on a guy is not something we can rely on, right? So like Fabio's got to be, the go forward plan in my mind. But
If it
I
was
do
anyone
think
else, I'd look at Sasa and Cunha and think that could be such a dynamic partnership that they could work really well together. But then I think they're both playing for the Wolves, and Sasa's got 2 ACLs, and this is why we can't have nice things. So
yeah,
I'll wake up and come back to reality then.
Alex, I think you hit the nail on the head though, based on what Paul said earlier about who's a person that casual American fans can look at and like, and it's Big Sassy. And because it's so tall, it's
I already love him.
abnormal. Yeah. Yeah. For a striker, you're already kind of just awestruck, like, oh, this guy's tall. And you want to know what they go? I bet he'd be good at FIFA crossing into the box.
Yep.
So that might be our best hope for bringing in more American fans is Big Sassy doing well. Nico Aveldi, Paul, it sounded like his girlfriend was all about moving to Wolverhampton.
Yeah,
You saw
obviously
that,
she's
right? I didn't just make that up. Apparently, she went
I
to
know.
Wolverhampton, scouted it out, and gave the okay, which, hey, that's awesome. That's good for the
I,
tourism
I
board
was
right
just
there.
laughing at the tweets I'm recalling now of people from Wolverhampton, not me, that were as saying like, what city did they send her to and say it was Wolverhampton? Like,
Maybe she's a small town girl, Alex.
it's true. Yeah. We don't know. We don't know.
I think that's got from what you read about it, profile a player, potential fit, that seems to have some legs. And I think value for money wise, let me and probably in terms of a name that's appeared and hasn't gone away, I'm going to say there's a 60% chance we see him in a Wolves shirt.
Okay. Alex.
Yeah, I like that. I'm on board. I would say Maybe I'll even say 70 because they clearly really need a center back. I feel like that's one of the first things they've got to do at this point, is bring some depth there. So, yeah, he's the one name that pops up on the morning Twitter scroll in bed. It keeps coming.
The morning doom scroll.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm gonna say 80%. 80% he comes. I don't know. I got a feeling. I don't think it's too big of a deal, and I think they can make that work. But then again, I've been wrong before, so who knows? Paul, is there a name I haven't mentioned that you're gonna have as a dark horse that Wolves could sign?
We've not mentioned him tonight, but it's certainly kicked around enough to warrant it. And it can certainly polarize the fan base. But it's Che Adams from Southampton for 10 to 12 million.
Okay. Alex?
Again,
go ahead.
Personally, if that was one of the guys when you're talking about a bench of 7 and you can bring on 5, if I'm turning around and I've got him and another competent striker on there, I'm probably taking it for that amount. But it's whether it's going to happen or not.
Alex?
Yeah, I mean, that's a really good call by Paul. I'm really struggling to find a dark horse. I'm trying to think of a player. Paul, I don't know, you know this way better, what the financials would look like if they were to loan somebody in. Like, I don't, is it just me, or do Wolves not really do a ton of business that way? Like, I know they get guys on loan with options to buy, usually from Portugal or somewhere else, but there's never like, other teams, they get guys on loan from other Premier League teams who aren't in their starting 11, and they do a job. Like, is that something they could afford if they're really restricted in terms of buying players? Like, Van de Beek or whoever, guys like that, like from
they always want to go
Man U.
somewhere else. Yeah.
Like maybe that'll be my dark horse, and I'm not even that excited about it. But I don't know. Is Donny Van de Beek still bumming around for United?
So often it comes down to with that profile of the player. If it was an out and out loan, the loaning team would expect the buying team to fully contribute the wages over either probably the full season, and even a Donny Van de Beek is probably in that upper echelon of our wage structure, and probably a lot of traditional loans out. Whereas if it's a Premier League team coming up like a Sheffield United or a Luton that could pick up a couple of kids, probably afford that 25 to 30k a week, even though they'd still be a relatively top earner for that smaller club, and do okay that way, knowing that they're just going to be effectively a finishing school for the parent club. But I'm pretty sure that they did mention it, that they would be looking at all eventualities in terms of boosting the squad, in terms of avenues that they can take up players on. And maybe there is scope for something like that when it comes to Doherty coming back on a free. It's the first free transfer we've had in a while, pretty much. So who knows? But it's just who it would be, and what the circumstances it dictate financially. I generally wouldn't know.
My dark horse is going to come at keeper. I wish it was Matt Turner. I feel like it would make a lot of sense. He needs more playing time. Wolves are wanting to play it from the back. U.S. men's national team likes to play from the back. Would make a lot of sense. But I do think it's going to be Kelleher from Liverpool. I'm not even going to try and pronounce his first name.
I would love that. Like that. Yeah. That seems smart. Like, he's not playing at Liverpool. He could arguably be our number one. Like, surely it can't be that complicated, right? I mean,
Yeah, I mean, at this point, just ask him to give it to us and we'll waive one of the 18 Jota payments they still owe us.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's gonna be that's my dark horse right there.
That's a great pick.
So yeah, we'll see. Well, hopefully season's a few weeks away. I keep trying to be positive and text Paul and say it's still too early. Something's gonna happen, but then weeks like this make me go, why did I do this to myself? I could have picked any team. I really could have. I'm a Cubs fan. I've already dealt with being a masochist for so long. Why did I do this to myself? And yet I'm so embedded, not just with the club, but all you wonderful Wolves fans and all of our great loyal listeners that, well, I'm stuck here now and you're stuck with me.
Yep.
Yeah. At least Paul didn't have a choice. Alex, me and you had choices, and
yeah, questionable decision making for sure.
Paul, do we have any kind of vague idea on what we're looking like for Tex Fest now that the schedule's out?
New York, Alex, if you can give an intro
Yes.
to that.
Absolutely. So our good friends, David Copey, frequent guest, and Dan John, the leaders of the New York Wolves, have secured the return of Fosun Day. Now it is on a Saturday, but Fosun Day, I think I'll call it instead of Fosun Day this time, is coming on Saturday, the 19th of August for Wolves home opener against Brighton. And I know a lot of people still do summer travel. If there's anyone going to be in New York City for that second match week and that Saturday, it's pretty sweet. So essentially, it's just a massive outdoor watch party at the Fosun building, which is in the financial district. 28 Liberty Street is the address. So they put it outside on a massive outdoor screen. Food and drinks will be had, and it's going to be a really big turnout. One of the larger outdoor, maybe some of the only outdoor watch parties, I would think, of this scale. So yeah, please, if you can, we want to get a good idea. They want to get a good idea of who's going. I'm definitely going to that one. New York Wolves on Facebook. I'm sure it's also up on Wolves USA on Facebook. You can find it there. Otherwise, you could always reach out to our show and we could get you connected with Dan and Dave. So going to be a really, really fun time. I wasn't at the first one, but I've seen a lot of photos and have talked to a lot of people who were, and it was really good stuff. So, and you know what? You could, bring your gripes to Fosun directly. try to take the elevator up and go leave a note on somebody's desk. I don't know. No,
Dan
please
and
don't do
Dave
that.
are really good at planning stuff too. I feel like between the two of them and you, Paul, you guys need to be hired by Wolves for actual event planning.
Yeah. Concur. Though I miss
Yeah.
Tex Fest, but this year we'll plan ahead on my
Yeah.
end.
Paul, you cut out a little bit. Do we have any type of idea what we're thinking Tex Fest wise?
We'll be shooting for the spring this year. We'll plan it strategically around our fixtures and college football and everything happening nationally, and figure it out accordingly based on that.
And before it gets to be 8,000 degrees in Houston, Texas.
Yeah.
Yeah. Stay cool out there, boys.
Oh, it's been brutal. Let me tell you what, moving in this heat, which thank you to a whole lot of Wolves fan Michael Moser. He stepped up to the plate and was out there for a whole day helping me move stuff. So props right there. All right, Paul. I'm out of whiskey, so that means the show's done.
That's right. So this was really a special. Just seems like a lot to talk about and not a lot to talk about at the same time. So hopefully it fills your summer with a little listening pleasure, listeners. And we will be back in that first week prior to the season for a full preview before that Manchester United away game. But if anything unfurls in those few weeks beforehand, who knows? You may get another special based on what happens. So in the meantime, let's who knows? But up the mighty Wolves.